Hi, humans. This is another case study session with cases from a Ming Dynasty doctor named Xue Ji. And he wrote a lot of cases within his books. He wrote books on many topics, and whatever topic he wrote about, he used a lot of his own cases. They're always very short cases, not a lot of words. But one of the characteristics of the way he practiced medicine was that he often prescribed one formula in the morning and another formula in the evening. So the patient would be taking two different formulas in one day, or even three different formulas. We'll see. So, why is it not changing? There we go. So the formulas in this particular slideshow, the cases in this particular slideshow come from this book, Outline of Female Medicine, which is another book that in large part is gynecology, but it also includes other conditions that he thought were common among women. It's not just gynecology. In the last case that I did, I guess that would be case number 9, we saw Tan Yun-shen used 4 different formulas in one day, one at dawn, one at noon, one at sunset time, more or less, and one at midnight. And wow, that's pretty complicated. 4 formulas in one day. Here he tends to do one in the morning and a different one in the evening. So we'll look at this idea. It wasn't only him, other people might do it. So you can see his dates here. This book was published in 1548. And he was also from Suzhou. There are a lot of Jiangnan doctors, and he is one of them. He was an imperial physician. Anyway, so let's do some cases with him using different formulas in the morning and in the evening. A woman's temperament was restless and impatient. She got scrofula, which is like hardening and swelling of the lymph nodes. In modern times, scrofula refers to a complication of tuberculosis, where tuberculosis gets into the lymph nodes. But then it could have been other things that caused a hard lymph nodes, other types of lymphadenopathy. Anyway, so she had scrofula and she began vomiting blood. She had fever and distending pain of both rib sides. This became severe at sunset. So, we'd probably say, she probably has some yin deficiency causing the fever and the heat and, vomiting blood. It actually, this phrase could be spitting blood. So maybe it is tuberculosis and she's coughing up and spitting out blood. Anyway, he took this, I take this as anger damaging the liver and deficiency of both qi and blood. So Chinese doctors, or ancient Chinese doctors, think women are angry. So anger is something that he frequently talks about in his cases on women. And you know what? Women had cause to be angry. Sometimes we still have cause to be angry. Anyway, so he thought anger bothered the liver made heat, the heat turned into what we might call yin deficiency, but he says deficiency of both qi and blood. So he used Xiaoyao san in the mornings. Before I move on and talk about that, he is really the doctor that popularized Xiaoyao san. It was a formula that was in the book a couple hundred years before Taiping Huimin Heji Zhufang, the official Song Dynasty formula book. But if you look at the various texts from the time this formula was first published until this part in the middle of the Ming Dynasty, wasn't commonly prescribed. And then he used it so much, and not just on women. He more often on women, but he also used it on men. And he also developed that Jiaowei Xiaoyao San. And, ever since it's been so popular. So he's kind of the person who change Xiaoyao San into a popular formula. So he's giving her Xiaoyao San in the mornings, doubling the Zhizi. So obviously this is something like Jiawei Xiaoyao San or something like that. Until black, he added, adding a double dose of Zhizi to clear heat and cool the blood. And remember, charred herbs stop bleeding too. Also, Huangbai, Beimu, and Jaegung, so lung herbs, Maimendong for yin deficiency, Weizhi, and so forth. So, you can think about those herbs. I'm not going to talk about the herbs one by one. In the evenings, though, he gave her, so she used Gui tongue to swallow Liwei Dihuangwan, and all of her symptoms equally recovered. So we've got a formula for qi in the mornings to move qi, and then in the evenings, Gui tongue to supplement qi and blood. And then Liwei Dihuangwan to nourish yin. And so he's using blood and yin herbs in the evening and qi herbs in the morning. That's what he tends to do. Here's another case. I told you his cases are short. A woman usually had a weak stomach. Because of crying for her mother, she vomited blood and had a bunch of other symptoms. Why is she crying for her mother? There are two possibilities. Her mother could have died, but also, women were married off and might never see their natal family again, because they might be married off to somebody in another place, and women didn't have a lot of freedom to go traveling or wandering around, at least the upper class women. So she may have been crying for her mother because she was newly married and unhappy in this situation. Doesn't really say. It does say that she's basically a married woman. And so anyway, she's crying for her mother. And so, sorrow damages the lungs. And she vomited, or again, this could be spit out blood. I probably should change this. Anyway, so she spit out blood. She had cough, fever, night sweating, and amenorrhea. She didn't menstruate for 3 months. And apparently they didn't think she was pregnant. So I took this as grief damaging the lungs and as thought damaging the spleen. And then she took Bujang Ichi Tang, because that will supplement qi. And adding some herbs like Jaegung, Beimu, and Zhimu, so to nourish lung yin and so forth in the mornings, and Gui tongue again to swallow the Wei Dihuangwan in the evenings, and she recovered. So while, some of the add-on herbs weren't really treating qi, but again, we can see that he's treating qi and yang in the mornings and blood and yin in the evenings. That's what he often did. Not every case, of course, not everyone needs to deal with both qi and, blood or yin, but in those cases where he had both things going, then he had these different formulas at different times. Here's another one. Every time a woman got angry, because he thought women were always angry, every time a woman got angry, she would have fever, ribside distension, and rough dribbling urination. Every time she menstruated, it lasted 10 days. So, she's angry, liver stores blood, liver's hot because of the anger. So the blood gets hot and now blood moves recklessly. She was already 3 months pregnant when the above symptoms relapsed due to anger. So that's a threatened miscarriage, right? In the mornings, I use Jiawei Xiaoyao San. Again, he's the Xiaoyao San guy, and he developed Jiawei Xiaoyao San. Excuse me. So in the mornings, he's dealing with qi, like, qi constraint, moving qi. In the evenings, I use antai-yin, which means calm the fetus drink. Okay, so obviously a calm the fetus drink is going to deal with blood. She was peaceful after 2 doses of each. but she became angry again in the 5th month of pregnancy and started bleeding again. It seemed almost like she was menstruating. It didn't stop for 4 days. So he used the same herbs again and she recovered. And we assume she eventually gave birth. Oh, so yeah. Blood herbs in the evening to calm the fetus, and qi herbs in the morning to move constrained qi. Yeah. Another case. Every time a woman reached 5 months of pregnancy, her body became really tired, and food and drink were just not interesting to her anymore. So she's kind of losing her appetite. And at first, both of her feet would swell up until gradually her whole body was swollen, and eventually it reached her head and face. This was spleen and lung qi deficiency. Okay, so in the mornings I use Buzhang Yi Tang, deals with qi. In the evenings I use the Junzi Tang. Okay, so that's not really dealing with blood or yin, but so this case is a little bit different, adding in some other herbs, and she recovered. I guess hopefully she gave birth to eventually. So you can see then that Xue Ji, as I said, used formulas to affect qi and yang in the mornings, as well as herbs to move, supplement or move qi and yang, and herbs to nourish blood and yin in the evenings, and calming formulas in the evenings. There are a lot of other cases, but these are just a few examples from that one book. He does this in other books as well. And so there are also a lot of cases he has where he said he had them take, this formula and that formula, but he doesn't really say this one in the morning and that one in the evening. And so I suspect that, he did that same thing. He just didn't write it out in every single case. But the majority of his cases only use one formula. So this was a special technique he used for when more than one thing is going on. Instead of combining formulas into one massive formula that's doing like a bunch of different things, he separated it out into 2 different formulas taken at 2 different times, kind of based on the qi of the universe, the rise and fall of yin and yang. So that's an interesting technique. I think we may have problems with patient compliance. It's hard enough to get them to take herbs anyway, much less to take this formula at this time and that formula at that time. But if you have a highly motivated patient, you might consider this kind of technique. Okay, so that's this set of cases.